Michigan and the NCAA, they are quite a pair, aren't they? Put those two in a room and let them go at it. All right. Appreciate you being here, the voice of college football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. And that discussion, debate, and analysis involves Michigan and their legal battles with, well, what could turn out to be legal battles with the NCAA. We will read through the post on Yahoo Sports. I don't know of a better one currently. So I've not dug into this to the degree that I have a working knowledge of it. But of course, most of it's what has existed in the public forum for now close to a year and a half, a year and 3 months. We've been dealing with this since mid 2023, something in that range. All right. So we will get right to it. Because this has to do with Michigan and leaks within the program, within the university at least, it appears. And then it also has to do with a lot of information that we are finding out for the first time in regards to details surrounding some of the interactions between the Michigan staff and others, but mostly the Michigan staff, the coaching staff. And so we will get right to it here at the Voice of College Football. You know my stance. My stance is I would love everyone, everywhere on the college football landscape to play by the rules and adhere to the rules. And therefore, we would have no doubts about outcomes and decisions and so forth and so on. That has not been the case since who knows when, the 1930s, the 1950s, whoever, when that was. All right. So we have to deal with situations like this. In this situation, let's just simply start with the story. We will read through the story. I will give my thoughts, many of which I've stated many other times, although because of new information that's being brought to light, I have a few additional thoughts. And of course, we would love to hear from you. The call-in line is in the chat. We've also posted that on Twitter as well. We're in the midst of a busy day here at the Voice of College Football. If you want to check out the analysis from our Ohio State guys, that is on the Buckeyes live show that we delivered this morning. Check out that Ohio State show on the Buckeyes channel. And then, of course, we've got Florida State coming up tonight and Miami. So we will do that. All right. Before we read the story and go through the specifics and get my response, this is first and foremost for you. So again, this came across my plate sometime yesterday evening. By the time I got to it, I blitzed through an article at probably 1 a.m. Running the business of a Voice of College Football Network kind of gets in the way of actually covering the sport many times. But by the time I did that and then had 5 shows to deal with today, so I've really not looked into it. I breezed through this story, but I wanted to get a first take reaction out there from me to you, but also more importantly to hear from you. So we're going to do that first and foremost. We got Timothy on the line. Timothy, how you doing? Hello, Timothy.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm here.
How you doing today?
Good. Been watching the channel for a moment.
All right, for a moment. What's going on? Do you have something to comment on?
Yes. Yesterday I was watching the Michigan channel, and they were talking about that there was some breaking news that the Michigan is going to the court of the what happened to 2 staff members that's no longer a part of the team. They wanted to take them to court. They should have had done that when Jim Harbaugh and Connor was still part of the team. But now these coaches and players that wasn't part of the national title team, let's just say the NCAA, they do win, but the no players, they're gonna get punished for something that previous coaches and players had done.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the way these situations work, is that many times the guilty go free and they've already moved on to another job. And for Jim Harbaugh, if all he wants to do is coach in the NFL, then he's not going to be affected by this whatsoever. And obviously, if he wants to come back to coaching college football, he's not able to do that right now because he's got a show cause. But he's fine in the NFL. And you're exactly right. Connor Stallions, I don't know that anything is necessarily going to come of him other than him not being able to work in college football. Well, Timothy, we appreciate you being here. Call back anytime, sir. All right, let's get to the article here. We'd like to hit on the article and just kind of take it on one by one in regards to all these points. And again, the call-in line's in the chat, so please join us. All right. Ross Dellinger reports Michigan fighting allegations made by NCAA and Connor Stallion sign stealing saga. It is quite the saga, is it not? I am sick of it. Okay, here we go. Michigan and the NCAA are in for a long, bruising fight over allegations related to the Connor Stallions-led advanced scouting and sign stealing scheme. In its response to the association sent earlier this month, the university refutes many of the alleged rules violations and accuses the NCAA of grossly overreaching and wildly overcharging the program without credible evidence that other staff members knew of Stallion's illegal in-person scouting system. I don't doubt that to a certain degree. Now, logic would tell us otherwise. But in terms of having hard evidence, we shall see. But in regards to logic dictating the course of where this information went, it's pretty obvious. In the 137-page document, a portion of which Yahoo Sports obtained, Michigan makes clear that it will not enter into a negotiated resolution with the NCAA over the alleged wrongdoing. So either they are that firm in their particular case and their standing, but I got to think that this is more of a combination of knowing where the NCAA stands and how far along they are in their investigation, and probably near its conclusion, we would think, after about 15 or 16 months, to determine, hell no, we're not going to take that punishment. We're not going to subject ourselves to an NCAA ruling that is going to put us in a bad place, in a bad light, and going to cripple our program going forward. So we are fighting. If it was a slap on the wrist, then I can't imagine this would be going on. Vigorously defending its former head coach, current head coach, several staff members, and even Stallions. And as we read through this, let's understand that this seems to be very straightforward news reporting, very tight-knit and credible, with a lot of facts in it, but also there is the slant of the writer. So again, one more time, Michigan fighting this and vigorously defending its former head coach, Jim Harbaugh, current head coach, Sharon Moore, several staff members, and even Stallions, the low-level assistant who orchestrated one of the most elaborate sign-stealing systems in college football history on the way to the school winning the national championship in 2023. The school purports that the sign-stealing system offered minimal relevance to competition. Okay, that's one argument. However, that's a weak argument in my estimation. Was not credibly proven by NCAA investigators, which would be a better argument and should be treated as a minor violation. So the first point is basically, we cheated, but it didn't have much impact. That's a poor excuse. We cheated. We wanted it to have an impact because that's why you cheat. You don't cheat to have a low impact. You don't cheat to make 51-7 games, 54-7 games because you got an extra field goal. No, you cheat to win. So this minimal relevance to competition clause or comment that the school is purporting is moronic. Was not credibly proven by NCAA investigators. That's a valid response. It may not be valid, but it's a valid. It's valid on the surface if they are in fact being logical with their their stance that the NCAA does not have credible investigation here and should be treated as a minor violation. Checking to see if anyone's calling. Nobody calling right now. The phone lines are open. They're on Twitter, and they're also right down below. All right. So we've got, in its response, Michigan believes that the notice of allegations sent to the school in August makes numerous factually unsupported infractions, exaggerates aggravating factors, and ignores mitigating facts. Numerous factually unsupported infractions. So they're being accused of things apparently that are unsupported. Okay. Don't know that I've seen the NCAA do that in the past. I'm not going to vouch full knowledge of every NCAA investigation. Exaggerating the aggravating factors, well, that would just be part of the process. We all do that when we have to take up a fight or a stance or prove something. Yes, you're going to take the facts and you're going to elaborate on those. You're going to puff them up to a certain degree to make your case, make your point. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that that's a given. Ignoring mitigating facts. Would they be mitigating facts or would they be mitigating factors? Those are two different things. I'm guessing they're more like situations and factors, not facts, but we shall see. The document says, okay, the school requests that the NCAA apply, quote, common sense and commitment to fairness and treat the case not as a serious level 1 infractions case, but a level 2 standard case. Okay. We knew that all along. The document details why many of the 11 allegations against the school, 6 of them deemed at level 1, are without merit or credible evidence. Okay, so 11 allegations against the school, 6 of them level 1. And I don't know if the document is telling us that Michigan is stating that none of the infractions, none of the allegations are credible, or they're all blown out of proportion to level 1, or just certain ones. But they're saying they're without merit or credible evidence. Okay, the school contends, and that includes allegations against ex-head coach Jim Harbaugh and current head coach Sharon Moore, who was an assistant on the staff during Stallions' advanced scouting operation and was found to have deleted text messages with him. Can't wait to hit on that point. Deleting text messages. Oh, my word. If there is a more incriminating way to conduct yourself. Anyway, however, perhaps most notable in the document is an answer to a long discussed question. Who originally tipped off the NCAA to Stallion's scheme? Okay. That's important in just gaining insight into how all of this unraveled. I don't know that that's important to the final declaration of infractions and punishment, discipline. If I find out so-and-so was speeding, going 80 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone, I may have obtained that that information, that intel, in a underhanded way. But if it's true, then it's true. Now, if the folks involved that spilled the beans did so just like in a regular court case, there is evidence that is, of course, accepted, and then there's evidence that's obtained in certain ways in a devious, unlawful manner that is thrown out, even though it's legitimate evidence. I don't really care who tipped off the NCAA. Yeah. But I'm not saying it's not relevant to the case because, again, it's a foundational element to our legal system and how it operates, and I get it. According to the document, the tipster derived from Michigan's own campus. The unnamed source, and I know that there are names out there and I can't think of them. One would be the former recruiting I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn here. I believe recruiting director, the one who went to Mississippi State, would be one of the guys that I've seen out there. But anyway, the unnamed source, which the NCAA has not disclosed, appears to have worked at the school at least at one point. Michigan believes the confidential leaker was used by the NCAA to produce at least some of the charges in the notice of allegations, something in which it expresses concern. That's reasonable. Again, it doesn't matter to me. And I think this is a nuanced conversation. I don't think either side is completely right in that, okay, we have discovered wrongdoing. How was this discovered? Was it discovered in an unscrupulous manner or not? That doesn't change the wrongdoing itself. But again, we do have laws in place to protect people and to protect organizations and so forth against intel being obtained in unlawful ways. While the school respects the secrecy of confidential sources, it says in the document the NCAA can present evidence and infractions based only on information that can be attributed to individuals who are willing to be identified. The case is now bound for a hearing before the Division I Committee on Infractions, an independent administrative body charged with deciding infractions cases. The committee has authority to set and conduct hearings as well as prescribe penalties. You know, we talked about this during the Buckeye Show today, and Tony Gerdeman made a good point just in regards to the current status of the NCAA. It's in its weakest form in the history of the organization. And whether there's going to be an NCAA by the time this all gets filtered out and determined, we shall see. However, Michigan is requesting a pre-hearing conference to discuss the origins of the tipster and their role in the charges against the school. Michigan's doing its best to deflect the actual alleged wrongdoing, which I think is pretty confirmed that it is wrongdoing. To what degree? So I don't need to say alleged. There is wrongdoing in this. A hearing before the Committee on Infractions is likely to happen over the coming weeks as the school and association enter that could be a lengthy fight similar to the one that Tennessee waged against the NCAA in 2023 over recruiting violations. Eventually, the Volunteers avoided the dreaded postseason ban, instead suffering financial penalties and recruiting and scholarship reductions. I would think that the financial penalties against the University of Michigan, especially in this new age of college football, would be the least damaging. I would think that they could just write checks. Recruiting and scholarship reductions, and with a reduced roster coming up to 85 athletes, there is certainly something to be said to that. The NCAA's notice of allegations, as well as Michigan's response, did not stipulate proposed penalties against the school. I'm not so much concerned with that right now myself. I have a lot of questions that I've been asking for a year and a half that have yet to be answered. However, 6 of the 11 violations are deemed to be level 1, and the NCAA asserts that Michigan, quote, failed to monitor its football program given the severe nature and multi-year length of the Stallion scheme. Absolutely. The university, that can't be argued. Failure to monitor. He's on the staff. This went on for 2.5 years. It would have probably still be ongoing today. The university and several of its coaches are considered repeat offenders, an allegation the school refutes in its response. Well, Jim Harbaugh is a repeat offender, but he's gone. Sharon Moore, we would have to look into the previous NCAA issue that obviously impacted the beginning of the 2023 season, in which Jim Harbaugh was suspended for 3 games, and Sharon Moore was the head coach for one of those 3. And his part in that's the first name that comes to mind, obviously, when the university and several of its coaches are considered repeat offenders. And then you've got Ward Manuel, who's running the whole ship. And then on the staff has turned over considerably, and even did during that time frame, even despite their extreme success in 2021, 22, 23. We're talking about 3 different defensive coordinators between 21 and currently. So that would be we would have McDonald, Minter, Martindale, who's not involved, just mentioning him. 2024 was his first year. And I don't remember the years. We're covering 3 seasons with 2 coordinators. So I don't remember. I think it was, I don't want to speculate because I don't remember who coached the defense in 22. 2 years ago, a separate investigation found both Harbaugh and Moore guilty of COVID. I don't care about that right now. Michigan placed on 3 years probation. So that, of course, goes back to the repeat offender status. Harbaugh got the 4-year show cause that prevents him from coaching in college football. He doesn't care. In its response, the school acknowledges that some impermissible in-person scouting appears to have occurred, though less than the NCAA claims, and that some recruiting violations occurred as well. So the school, if it determines that this probably happened, all of these impermissible in-person scouting situations, but we believe based on the evidence, the NCAA can only prove this many, then obviously we're only going to admit to this many and say there were no other ones. And they have every right to do that, even though it's not logical that, I got 8 speeding tickets. No, I don't. Not right now. I did in my 20s. 8 or 9 speeding tickets on my record. Those are the only times I ever was speeding. Okay, all of the wrongdoing, it says, will be addressed in the Committee on Infractions hearing, and it will advise committee members of self-imposed penalties. And again, we've got the call-in line available for you to chime in. Michigan believes the COI will see that actual evidence has not borne out the NCAA's initial assessment of the resulting sensational public narrative or the approach taken in the notice of allegations. I don't know that the NCAA is responsible for the public narrative, but certainly there's other things. If they misrepresented the findings, if they misrepresented the facts, and should be held accountable by the University of Michigan. Despite producing phone, computer, and other data to the NCAA, investigators have not proven that any coaches were aware, much less participated in the scheme, Michigan says. Okay. Now, this is cutting fine lines between different types of evidence. Of course, you've got hardcore evidence, immediate smoking gun evidence, you have circumstantial evidence, you have different types of evidence, or you have a deduction of evidence, meaning the only way we could have arrived here was, even though we don't have B, C, and D, we couldn't have arrived at E from A without those. Therefore, so there's all sorts of ways to put this together. All right, Sharon Moore's deleted texts. I never thought I would put Hillary Clinton and Sharon Moore in the same sentence, but I guess I just did. All right, like I said on the Buckeyes show, well, let's read it first. Here we go. Of the NCAA's 11 allegations against the school, 6 of them related to Stalions and his scheme. One of them stands as the most serious and impactful for the current state of the program. Moore, then an assistant, deleted 52 text messages with Stallions on the very day, October 19, 2023, that Yahoo Sports broke the story of the NCAA's investigation into the school. Somebody who understands espionage and understands the deleting of digital data and all of that, because I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm an old dude that did not grow up with this technology. I've, of course, taken it on in the last 15 or 20 years like everybody else. Like at one point in history, again, we had Hillary Clinton deleting emails off a server that were never retrieved, based on my knowledge. But I would think text messages can be retrieved. Now, since this is not a legal matter, this is not a government situation, then I don't know if those parties would have the ability to track and find out from the original source and from the carrier and go into all of that. Please let me know, because maybe it's effective to delete text messages, but apparently not, because I think we're going to read some of them. In its response, Michigan and Moore acknowledged the deleted messages. However, the school contends that the texts were innocuous and not material to the investigation, and that Moore cooperated fully with the investigation, even turning over his phone for imaging, a move that revealed the previously deleted messages. Okay. The imaging process, thank you. That certainly answered my question. Just wanted to make sure. I didn't think that was an issue of retrieving those messages. When somebody deletes messages off a phone, it's just for their own self-organization. And then also, if they're trying to keep something from somebody who may be able to access the phone, spouse, coworker, whomever. The coach told school officials that he deleted the messages in anger and frustration shortly after the bombshell news story broke, suggesting that he did not want one person, Stallions, to receive credit for all the work that coaches and players put into the championship run. So I deleted all the information, all Connor, on my personal phone. Wait, I'm backtracking on this statement about deleting messages from Connor Stallions because he didn't want him to receive all the credit. All the credit for the cheating? Wait a minute. Am I reading that right? It doesn't make any sense. Unless somebody can clarify that for me, how that possibly could make sense. We're winning championships. I'm the offensive coordinator. I'm receiving text messages from a guy who eventually is the fall guy and is maybe, again, this is where I'm trying to be fair as possible, is the culprit and maybe the sole culprit. I'm receiving text messages from him, and then I delete them when the story gets out, because by deleting them, I didn't want him to receive all the credit for all the work that we'd done. That might be the best quote I've heard in quite some time. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's just a big excuse, but it doesn't make sense. It would make more sense to say, I'm going to show you these deleted text messages or the text messages to show that this had no impact on our excellent defense and our championship runs. So Sharon Moore says, I deleted all the information, all Connor on my personal phone, he said in Michigan's response. And it wasn't to hide anything. It was just that. And Sharon Moore, to his credit, turned over his phone. I don't know. I know other individuals in this situation have not, and it had to be confiscated in some legal manner. And at this point, this is not a legal matter. It's the NCAA has supervision over college athletics, and the University of Michigan has apparently violated, well, they have, but to what degree, have violated. And so this is just an internal matter. It's not a legal matter yet. There are legal ramifications, and the legalities of it are coming. So he did turn over the phone. I was just extremely angry of, the type person that would do that to this program and these kids. I still don't buy it. I don't get it. Okay. You've been receiving for what length of time? We don't know. I don't think that ever shows up. That Connor Stallions has been texting you things that we will read here in just a minute. And the story breaks and you delete the messages. I see no other reason than deleting the messages, because you don't want the messages to be seen to, of course, reveal your connection to this individual, to Connor Stallions, and the information and the type of conversations you've been having about his work. If it was also innocent, then you would keep the messages and say, look, this dude and I, we're trading recipes, and that's all we're doing. And he's got a great pumpkin muffin recipe, and basically it has nothing to do with, because we have certainly earned all of these championships and our outstanding play. Yeah, nobody can convince. It would be difficult. I am not the smartest or the sharpest tool in the shed, so maybe I'm missing something there. Wasn't to hide anything. It was just that I was so angry. Okay. And let's understand when we say the kids or the players, the young men playing the sport, I think that they are in some ways, well, the opponents would be the biggest victims. The opponents, the opposing players and coaches and universities, etc. Then it would be the players themselves on the Michigan team. I don't think they conjured this up. In its response, Michigan highlights several of the text messages between the coach and Stallions. While many of them are innocuous, Stallions reminding more of a prospect's birthday, for instance. Several were related to sign stealing. However, the university notes none of the texts were specifically about the in-person advanced scouting system. Okay. All right. So, since we do know that Connor Stallions performed an in-person advanced scouting system that's against the rules, and then he shared some type of, I don't want to call it information. I don't think any of the quotes that came out were like, they run a 4-3 primarily on third and long, those sorts of conversations. Maybe there were, but the ones that were brought to the public forum are not. So I think that that's technically a defense that Michigan is using here. That's, I don't want to call it valid, because I don't think it's valid, but based on the facts and what's been offered in this article, this is the only one I've looked at. I think it holds up. Let's put it that way. It holds up. None of this information, this conversation between Sharon Moore and Connor Stallions, has anything to do and can be directly related to it. It is not revealing that this information had to do with in-person scouting. But this individual that's making these text messages, he is running this elaborate in-person scouting, and he is providing those types of conversations and talking points. But I guess just none of it had to do with anything that came from the in-person scouting. Right. So Stallions allegedly organized himself and a group of low-level staff, friends, and family members to record. I think this is more than allegedly. This has been proven. But maybe Ross Dellinger is protecting himself and maybe until it's fully revealed, start to finish, and the ruling is made. Okay, in person, as many as 52 games of Michigan's upcoming opponents over a 3-year stretch. While NCAA rules prohibit in-person scouting of future opponents, the association permits scouting opponents' signs during games against that opponent from television broadcast or taped recordings. So I will, in Michigan's defense, make this statement as well. And we do appreciate your comments and questions, the call-in lines in the chat. And then also, if you would like to leave any comments or questions, then certainly let me know. It shows up with a super chat, so thank you for that. Okay. Some of the text messages between Moore and Stallions paint a fascinating picture of the behind-the-scenes nature of Michigan's sign-stealing effort. One that, well, wait a minute. Time out. Unless I'm missing something, Ross Dellinger is making kind of a leap here. So if we are, whether we believe it or not, we are adhering to Michigan's or the previous statement that was made about that although these text messages are going back and forth, there is no intel that can be proven that is directly from the in-person illegal against the rules scouting. But here it says some of the text messages between Moore and Stallions paint a fascinating picture of the behind-the-scenes nature of Michigan's sign-stealing effort. That's not, I don't consider that great writing. Anyway, one that, according to the school, is perfectly within the rules and is a fairly normal art among college football staffs. Well, why do we need to hear about that? But anyway, that's fine. It's more information, but if it's within the rules, that's great. August 22, text from Stallions to Moore. Stallions describes needing time to meet with the coach to discuss a juicy report for you on Colorado State, as in, yes, CSU, which Michigan opened the season again against that year. The Wolverines won 51-7. In October 22, Stallions sent Moore a single text about Michigan State's blitzing, signals, rules, and tendencies. Again, how he obtained these technically to the previous point and Michigan's point, we don't know. He might have just been studying film. But again, he's running a sign-stealing scheme that's been proven, and he's making these text messages to Sharon Moore. Has the NCAA confiscated the phones of the defensive coordinators? What was Moore's title in addition to offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, and actually, no, wait a minute. Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator for this entire championship run, correct? Josh Gaddis out the door 2020. Michigan played Michigan State every year. Michigan State never changed its signals, the document says, in providing context with the text. Bad on them. November of 22, Stallion suggests to Moore that Michigan should change its signals ahead of the Ohio State game. Moore responded that he'll think about it, and Stallions responds that Nebraska is screwed. Well, Nebraska has been screwed for a long time. A reference to the fact that he could easily decipher the Huskers' signals ahead of the Wolverines game against them that very week. Michigan won 34-3, but Moore told university officials that Nebraska used wristbands, so there were no signals to steal. So, Nebraska using wristbands does not, in my mind, change if that's going to be followed up on and proven. Just watch the game, of course. ABC, I believe, at 3:30 Eastern on that particular game. That doesn't change the wrongdoing, but I understand the explanation of, we didn't benefit from that. Maybe Nebraska knew something and therefore they switched to wristbands. So it'd be interesting to see if Nebraska was using wristbands prior to the Michigan game. All right, believe we do have a call coming in. We got our buddy Nick standing by. Nick, what's going on?
Not much, Mark. How's it going?
Good. What's on your mind?
I don't know if I formally congratulated you on a title. So congrats. I hope you
Thank you.
I hope you had a great, well, I'm sure you had a great time watching it. Hopefully it wasn't too stressful. I know how some of those games can go, but yeah, and it sounded, I heard you made a comment the other day that was kind of interesting to me. You thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you thought you were not going to like the 12-team format as much as you ended up liking it. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'm trying to separate that obviously from the outcome of the championship. My point was, I thought that, first of all, people are expecting to come up with a playoff format where every game's going to be an epic classic down to the final kick or something. That's just not going to happen. So we had 4 largely uncompetitive, non-competitive games in the first round, but one was decent, Clemson, Texas. Then we got into the next round, and I thought we had competitive football, and we had 2 or 3 or 4 extremely good games, excellent games.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Man, I gotta say, thought that just keeps popping in my head. I actually did think it was a pretty entertaining playoff as well, but I can't get over how bad, maybe this is just me, but Quinn Ewers' pocket awareness is just awful. It seems like something he's struggled with for a while. And all props to Jack Sawyer, by the way. I'm not trying to diminish the play he made, but my goodness, man, he just seems like he has a tendency to just hold the ball, pat the ball, and it's like, dude, just throw it away. If nothing's there, just throw it away. So, but anyway.
On that particular play, obviously Sawyer's coming not from his blind side. He's coming directly at him, and he should have enough awareness. And there was no other, it wasn't like he was in the pocket and there's all sorts of traffic. He had flushed himself out, and Sawyer's just coming from like 15 yards away, like running a sprint right at him. And it was 4th down. So you chuck the ball, you heave it as high as you can, some kind of alley-oop in the end zone, and you let one of your playmakers try to make a play on the ball.
Yeah, it was a crazy play. One of the, well, I'd say I don't maybe not hypest is the best word, but definitely a wild play that was fun to watch. But anyway, yeah, regarding this Connor Stallions stuff, what I'm most interested, I do think this is going to end up going to court. And the reason why is because I don't think the committee that Michigan's going to ultimately get a sentence from is going to be reasonable with this. I think the NCAA is not being reasonable. I think they have too much invested in it, and they're already teetering with the authority that they do have.
Yep.
The power's been slipping through their fingers in many other areas.
I don't think you can prove that. That's like a lot of Michigan's retorts in these allegations. What you're saying is very logical. It can't necessarily, or it may be difficult. I can't say it can't be proven. It could be proven that they've overstepped their bounds and stretched the truth, and those things could be proven. I don't believe that they have yet, but what you're saying is very logical.
I think you can read between the lines on some of this stuff. One of the things I don't understand is if Sharon Moore's text messages were not incriminating, why is he getting punished for deleting text messages if he's the one who handed over his phone and he's the one who allowed the NCAA to look through those text messages? People are making the assumption, well, he only would have deleted them if he knew about Connor Stalions, I don't know, whatever you want to say, standing on the sideline of CMU or whatever, which still, I don't even know if that has come out. I believe it was him on the sideline, but kind of ridiculous. But it's things like that I don't understand. Why would Sharon why would the NCAA come after Sharon if none of those text messages were incriminating him? And on top of that, he didn't delete those text messages, I think, when the school was officially under investigation, because it was the day that he heard anything about it. I can't remember the actual date the investigation was started, but it was months prior. So it's things like that that don't add up to me. How does the NCAA have the ability to try to suspend a coach for deleting text messages?
The date listed in this article of the deleted messages was October 19th. That seems pretty close to when the story broke, at least.
Okay, but when do we know when the NCAA asked for his phone? Because I'm pretty sure Sharon came forward, and there was a statement from him to the university, and he's the one who supplied his phone to them, and also said, essentially, he gave them access to his deleted text messages because the NCAA doesn't have subpoena power. So if he wouldn't have handed it over, there's nothing that they could have really done to retrieve those. So I don't understand. To me, that doesn't logically add up with that one specifically. Like, what is in those text messages that broke NCAA rules? Because if there's not anything, then we're talking about the NCAA thinks they have the authority to suspend or fine or do whatever they're going to do against coaches who delete text messages. I think Urban Meyer deleted text messages between him and Zach Smith when that whole thing went down.
Okay.
And I know that's a totally different situation, but I'm just saying deleting text messages is not against NCAA rules.
No, I think we're confusing something, though. The text messages are not the sole source of evidence in this case to say the NCAA acquired these text messages and this is the core of their case against Michigan. No, it's supporting evidence of things that they're discovering and have discovered by other sources and other means. It's just a supporting evidence piece. Like, they're not basing their case on Sharon Moore's text messages with Connor Stallion.
No, but Connor Stallion's worked under Michigan, and he did other things besides his. There were portions of the sign stealing that were legal, and it looks like a few minor portions, or maybe it's not minor, but a few portions that were illegal. He was clearly on the staff, so him communicating between the staff is not like this wild. Oh, we got you. That's not the smoking gun. That's not even
not
close.
At all. Not at all.
So,
no.
I mean, if you,
everything we just read, and who knows how much more, that Nebraska's screwed and CSU does X, Y, and Z. Yeah, none of that points directly to that. I don't even know if it's intel. They're not talking about schemes or anything. But anyway, that information, that communication coming directly from the sign stealing. But the point I'm trying to make is that if Connor Stallions was against the rules sign stealing, I hate to say illegally because it's not a legal matter, but within this context, illegally sign stealing, but these text messages can also be a part to look at evidence in support of, because who's going to sign, like, if Connor Stallions is doing all this quote unquote work, and some of it's legal, some of it's not, and then he's communicating this to Sharon Moore, and again, it can't be determined, well, this is coming exactly from the legal recruiting or the legal scouting, and this is not. It's still supporting evidence of someone who is acting and committing NCAA infractions.
It's I don't know. I think that's a stretch. I think that's making
I don't think
assumption.
it's a stretch at all.
Well, that's fair. That's why I'd like to see this go to. I mean, you're allowed to have that opinion, obviously.
It's like if I'm running a counterfeit money scheme, and the FBI is retrieving all the money that I've spent around town, and then they are able to. And this is even a not even a clear cut analogy but they're able to find the legitimate money and bills that I've paid for gas and other items. But that allowed me to spend the counterfeit money on other things. But that's even more clear cut.
I don't know because in this
because
case,
this we don't know. That's what I'm just saying. It can't be proven that it came from the illegal scouting, but it could be.
And that's yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I guess I would lean more towards sign stealing's legal. A lot of schools do it. A lot of schools have designated sign stealers, more than one actually. Sure. So it's not a foreign concept to coaches. Coaches do communicate with sign stealers across the country because they're staff members to varying degrees. But like you said, that doesn't prove that Sharon Moore was involved or aware of what Connor Stalions, the extracurricular stuff he was doing.
True.
And I think kind of ultimately the point is you're saying is the NCAA doesn't, it's not a courtroom. So the NCAA doesn't need to prove anything. They can just essentially say, we think you did this. Well, do you have evidence? Some, a little, but not really. Okay. Well, we're just going to slap you with this anyway. So, and that's why I want I'd like to actually see this go to court, because there's a lot of questions that I have, including the original bylaw. Like there's a lot of pieces missing there. And it was kind of funny. As soon as I saw certain pundits start to talk about the spirit of the rule and kind of shift that way, then I'm like, okay, well, that's just a poorly written rule. So I would like to see these things hashed out. I ultimately, like I said at the beginning, I also ultimately think this is going to go to court, because I think the NCAA is out for blood. And to be all honest, I think like some of them, if they have any awareness at all, this might be their last opportunity to really try to take a chunk out of somebody before they're ultimately...
That's speculation on your part.
Oh yeah, but I think there's a lot of holes here, and I think there's been a lot of exaggerating. There's been a lot of court of public opinion type stuff going on. And then lastly, I would actually like to learn about the leaker, because according to Connor Stalions, and he might be lying, but the documents that the NCAA presented to Michigan, from what I've seen and heard, were acquired from Connor's personal computer, and who no one else had access to, according to him. And I really want to get to the bottom of, was some of the documents that the NCAA got from this insider, was it acquired illegally? Because I have a hunch about that. Now it's just a hunch, but I have a feeling that it's much more complicated than a Yahoo article.
Sure.
You know, so we really only know so much. That's kind of the other reason why I wanted to go to court, is because, you know, more details would be released that we could hopefully find out. But yeah, I think the NCAA is out for blood. I don't think they really give a damn about their own bylaws. I just think they want to try to come after Michigan for whatever reason. You could say Jim Harbaugh was there, or they're a brand, or whatever. There's all kinds of speculation there. But yeah, I think the NCAA is over their skis on this, and I'd like to see how it turns out in court. So,
well, we will probably see that.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that's all I got for you. Thanks for taking my call, Mark.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it. Here's a smart Michigan fan right there. Our buddy Nick, sure, he takes his digs at Ohio State, does it on a regular basis, many times through the super chat, which I can't avoid. But always appreciate hearing from Nick. Smart guy, good caller. As Ryan says there in the chat, we've got another one. Got Michigan man showing up.
Hey, what's up, Mark? About time we heard some more. I'm doing good. It's about time we heard some more news about this, huh?
Here we go.
I'm still disappointed in the lack of new information. There's a couple things in here, don't get me wrong, but it's not, I expected some more. Now, this wasn't the full 137 pages, correct? It was only a portion of it.
Yes.
Okay, so there's probably still a lot more. Do we know who leaked this? Do we know what side leaked this?
Okay, so the article here says that it's somebody on campus. It's somebody that worked for the University of Michigan. I think that you could find out fairly quickly online whether it's been substantiated or not.
No, I meant who
Who
leaked
that
the
is.
response.
I'm
I meant
sorry, what's that?
who leaked it. I meant who leaked the response.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There are names out there. There are names out there. One is I can't think
And
of
there
the
is a
guy's name
portion.
that went to Mississippi State. He was involved in
Oh, Dudek.
recruit.
Dudek?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think. I think actually that isn't that referring to who talked to the NCAA originally, not who leaked the response.
Who leaked the response?
Like
Yeah,
who leaked it to?
yeah.
Was it the? That's my why I want to know. Was it the NCAA? And the reason I want to know this is because if it's Michigan that leaked portions of their response, are they just leaking the best parts, right? Or is it the NCAA? Like that's an interesting thing to think about is because if it's Michigan if they leak the response, are they just leaking the best parts of the response?
Yeah, we're seeing like 3 quotes from Connor Stallions and Sharon Moore back and forth out of 52. Now, obviously, a lot of those are, like it says, innocuous to this, but I don't know if we're getting to see all of those or those are just 3 out of 20. Whether Michigan had the power over that or otherwise, I don't know.
Oh, 100%. Let me ask you this: do you feel are they fighting this because they were presented with? I don't know if this has been mentioned. Are they fighting this because they were presented with some punishment options, or has that not even been discussed yet?
That's something I kind of conjectured about right off the top of this live stream. So there's nothing that indicate. Well, I think that they're fighting it because they know that there's 11 level 1 violations involved in this, and they have a good idea of what that's going to mean. But I don't. That's a great question. I don't know if they. I doubt if it got to the point of the NCAA saying these are going to be the violations, and then Michigan is now fighting it. I don't think so. But Michigan certainly
fair
knows
enough.
what 11.
Okay, now
Sorry, you're cutting out. That's why I'm talking over you. Go ahead, Michigan man.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Hear me?
I thought we did. All right. We are Michigan man, call back.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Hello, hello. All right. We're going to let Michigan man go for right now, and we'll try him back in a few minutes. Okay. Where were we? We shared the whole Nebraska comment and Ohio State. Perhaps the most interesting text came in April of 23. Stallions sent a note to Moore that Central Michigan assistant coach Jake Costner planned to visit the facility to meet with Moore. Central Michigan opened the 23 season with Michigan State. And Michigan, of course, plays them all the time. Ironically enough, Stallions is believed to have attended that game. And that's what we just talked to Michigan man about and Nick, that it seems based on all the evidence and the pictures I've seen and the guest list on the sideline and all that business that I don't know that it's been proven but I think we're very close to that point that Connor Stallions was on the sideline for what I believe was a Friday game, Central Michigan, Michigan State, while in disguise. In fact, CMU fired Costner last fall as the NCAA investigated the matter of Stein's alleged appearance on the sideline of the game. So who knows if Costner was working probably alone and CMU, this broke. He's tied to it. Get rid of him. Okay, that cuts all ties between us and him. I don't know what Michigan State in particular, I don't know what Central Michigan would have if it was beyond Costner's knowledge, what they would have to gain in all this. I can't think of a damn thing. So I'm just thinking that Costner, hey, you're an assistant coach at Central Michigan. You can make some good inroads with the staff at the University of Michigan. You may want to do that. Not if you're on the up and up, but I mean that's a way to do it. So the incentive there makes sense. All right, let's try Michigan Man again here. Michigan Man.
All right, my bad, Mark. My
You're
bad,
good.
man. Can you hear me better now?
We got you.
Okay, cool. And that's an interesting point. Was the CMU coach? Now, Sharon Moore used to coach at CMU, didn't he?
Well, I'll look it up right now. I don't know.
Yeah, look that up because I believe he used to be on the CMU coaching staff, and he knew some of the current coaches, some of the coaches that were there at the time. Because I know they've obviously changed coaching staffs, but
you are correct. 2014 through 17. So 4 seasons. Tight ends coach, assistant head coach, tight end. There you go.
And here's the next part: was Costner there at the time?
What's his first name? Jake. We'll find out. I don't know if he's gained the status to have a wiki page, but we'll find him somewhere. So any other points, Michigan Man, in all this?
Yeah, so here's my thing. That to me is the fishiest thing on here. Is the text about meeting up with Costner.
They worked together. Yes, Sharon Moore and Jake Costner. Costner's been there for 9 years.
Okay, so getting a little interesting. Okay, so they obviously know each other. Okay, now here's the thing that I think Michigan could argue when it comes to that text is clearly coaching staffs do exchange signals.
Yep.
They do exchange signals. So they could argue. Now, we don't know because that's all the text says. We don't know if they were actually meeting about, can you get Connor Stallions on the sideline? We're never going to know that. But what Michigan could argue is, look, coaching staffs exchange signals all the time. I know this guy. I coached with this guy. Yeah, I wanted to meet up with him to discuss giving me signals after the game. That could be their argument. I mean, it's a good argument. But at the end of the day, they could have literally met to be like, hey, we got Connor Stallions here. I know I want you to let him on the sideline. It literally could have been what happened.
Yeah.
We'll never know though. I mean, it's not at the end of the day. The evidence that has been presented so far, and what is Octum Razor? I forget what that is. Octum Razor, is that where the easiest explanation is usually the correct explanation? Is that what Octum Razor is?
You got me on that one. Is that a legal term?
It's more of a philosophical term.
Okay.
But anyways, I believe that's what it is. Basically, I feel if there was more evidence than what has been presented so far, we would have known by now, in my opinion. We would have known by now. And in my opinion, if this is all they have, so far it's been pretty weak. It's a pretty circumstantial case that they have with no, and I believe it even says in the article at some point, I believe it even says that the NCAA doesn't have any evidence that any of the coaching staff knew. So we're going to find out quick here. I believe they're having a pre-hearing. I don't know if you've gone over that.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they're having a pre-hearing about the leak. So that's going to be very interesting. Are they having the pre-hearing because they feel that some of the information that was originally obtained was obtained through illegal means? That's going to be interesting, because does the NCAA want to keep pushing this if what they have and they've been using was obtained illegally? Like, we're actually talking about real court of law stuff at that point.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know that they would have pushed this to this extent. You know, Michigan has already challenged them in the past. They've shown that they weren't necessarily going to just lay down to whatever ruling came down, especially if it's going to be this severe. So, yeah, for the NCAA to make a judgment call that, we think we're going to, get buy-in, or we're going to get Michigan to adhere to these penalties that we lay down, and we're never going to get to this point of having to show that we acquired a lot of this evidence illegally. That's a miscalculation on their part, it seems.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out pretty quick here too, because I believe they said within the next couple of weeks that they're going to start having these hearings. So we're gonna find out some stuff here, and I'm interested to see where this ends up going. Here's what I wonder: are they fighting again? It goes back to this. Are they fighting this because they strongly feel? Now, remember, Michigan has one of the best law programs out there.
Sure.
So, are their lawyers saying, "Hey, look, we looked through this. They don't really have much, and we feel like we really could fight this," or is it that we were told that these could be the punishments and we have to fight this? That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, or some combination of the two. But that's a great point with the law school. And I was talking to our buddy TJ over on the Michigan channel about this last night. He brought that to light. He mentioned that in terms of getting all this legal backing and this expert advice right on campus, and being able to fight this about as well as anyone can. But also, yeah, not just knowing that if you get into the fight, you can fight it as well as just about anyone, but even more so, it's more important to know, is this a fight worth taking on? What are the odds of us coming out on top?
Yeah, and I'm with the previous caller, like, just on Sharon Moore alone, right? If all they're basing their punishment for Sharon Moore on, because obviously you could punish the school, but that's separate from punishing the individual coach, right? What if all they're punishing the individual coach for is deleted text messages that he ended up turning in anyways?
Yeah.
And those text messages don't have anything. I know it's not a legal, it's a legal term, but it's not. We're not a court law, but incriminating. I don't understand, and I think that's what Michigan's really fighting hard. I think that's another reason why they're fighting really hard too, is because they're like, why are you punishing Sharon? What are you punishing Sharon Moore for exactly? Because he deleted messages that he ended up turning in anyways, and he deleted them before the NCAA even notified that they wanted his phone, and when they did, he turned it in regardless. Like, and on top of that, those messages aren't even anything incriminating. I mean, I think that's a big reason why they're fighting too, because now that's their head coach, and they feel like he shouldn't get any punishment in relation to himself.
So, of course, Michigan, man, the better phones to confiscate would be from McDonald and Minter, but no longer being at Michigan and under the NCAA supervision, they're off the hook and gone. But those would be the interesting text messages, I would think.
Yeah, did they ask for those originally though? And did they give their phones up?
No.
I mean, that's another thing. Because what did it say in the article? They said, was it Mike Hart? Someone went to Mentor, right? Mike Hart I think it says that in an article. Someone did go. So I think Rutgers told, it was in the middle of last year. I think it was right before the news broke. Someone from Rutgers, was it Rutgers? Yeah, Rutgers called, I think, Mike Hart or another staff member, voiced the concerns about Connor Stallions, and then they went to Jesse Mentor and told Jesse Mentor about it. But this would have been September, October of last year. I think it says it in the article.
Okay. We will get to it.
So that's another interesting tidbit. And Michigan does, by the way, they do admit to some impermissible scouting in this article. I mean, they do admit to some. It's not like they're denying. So I think Michigan fans, you gotta realize it's clear as day that I've seen Michigan fans on Twitter still, full denial about it. There was some impermissible scouting, no doubt. It's the question of what the degree was. How bad was it?
Sure.
So yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. We'll see. It's gonna be an eventful off season for sure. So all right, Mark.
Appreciate it, Michigan man. It's our guy, Michigan man, and I would like to certainly recognize a lot of great people in the chat. David Greenshield, Brad Smith, thank you for being here. Mike Rotunda. We've got Todd, Gwen. We've got Christopher's here. And we've got Cheryl. Good to see Cheryl as always. Cheryl, we want to note, of course, the longest tenured follower here at the Voice of College Football. If I would line up all the subscribers, she wouldn't necessarily be number one. But those people are still subscribed. They're out there somewhere. I don't know if they're watching anything, but they're subscribed. But anyway, Cheryl would be the most long tenured active. So we appreciate Cheryl. She's got the wrench there. So be careful. Be kind to each other. All right. Keep chopping. Thank you. Troy V. A lot of great people. Don't want to miss anyone, but Dr. Foul Cheese and Jeff Johnson. Thank you for that. Look at that on the bottom of the screen, Michigan and Ohio State fans. This is what we're going to do. In just about 2.5 weeks, February 17th, that's a Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be right here. I'm going to take calls from Michigan fans. I am going to do my very best job to line up the metrics, the conditions of this rivalry today and throughout the history of the rivalry from day one, and the balance of power in this rivalry, and give it a fair shake. And I believe the best way to give it a fair shake, because many of you will say, Mark, you're biased. You know what? You're right. I'm biased. Guess what? Number one, I admit it. So that's number one. Everyone's biased. Do you realize that it can be proven psychologically that we're all biased about everything? When I flip on the UCLA Washington game, that I could care less who wins the game, I'm automatically biased based on what? All sorts of things that I just, before the game started, thought Washington was just better. So everything that happens, I just, under the slant that I just think they're better. I like their uniforms better. I like their coach better. I think he's better. All sorts of things. UCLA beat Ohio State in 2001, so I don't like them. Whatever. There are inherent biases, just the style of play. You just kind of like that team better than that team, and you don't even know it. So, of course, there's biased. But the bias is, I do my best of eliminating that as much as possible. So, and the way to balance that out is just to take Michigan callers. So it's me against Michigan. And I will acknowledge off the top of this show that Michigan has, of course, one of the most illustrious, grandiose, historic programs in the history of college football. And there are ways to argue the greatest and the most illustrious. So this is only a debate because it is a debate. We're not arguing Michigan against Rutgers and their football histories. because that's not a debate. We're not going to argue Tom Brady and Bernie Kosar as the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. That's not a debate. It's got to be, Pat Mahomes against Tom Brady. It's got to be Babe Ruth against Barry Bonds or whatever. It's got to make sense. So it is a debate. So we'll start with that premise. And again, I think you've come to the right place for the right guy, that even though I've got a stake in this, even though I've got a dog in the fight, I think I've proven myself over time to be fair about all of it. And when I'm not fair, because I will not be 100% 50-50 fair, I'm taking Michigan callers to debate me. Or maybe just some of it's going to be, believe me, some of it's going to be a bloodbath. But I am not going to yell at anyone, I don't think. I am not going to, Chris Foot, don't call. I am not going to demean anyone. For all the times that I've called people idiots and morons, I will refrain from doing that. Specifically, I will maybe deflect it to those idiots and morons that I've seen on social media. Like for one example would be Ohio State doesn't have a national championship because they stole Alabama's plays. Okay, there's rhetoric like that out there that we don't allow here at the Voice of College Football because, of course, we're the best. We call it like it is. And you guys know from being in the chat, if I see an inaccurate statement in the chat, I go, no. That was not their record, or he was not the coach that particular year, or whatever it might be. But we will have a great time. I would like about 1,000 people. We should have 1,000 people watching now. We have like 60 or 70 on the main channel. We've got a total of like 160 or 170 with those folks on Twitter who should come on over to YouTube and watch us there because you can comment. So we appreciate you being here. So thank you all. We are going to deliver all sorts of great stuff here at the Voice of College Football over the next several weeks and several months. I'm in the midst of producing. We'll get back to this Michigan business with the NCAA. I'm in the midst of producing conference rankings. So we've got the Big Ten coming up next. So this isn't just, I think the Big Ten's the best, so they're number one. And then number two is the SEC, of course. And no. We do it the smart way. We seed the teams. We seed the matchups. We look at point differentials. We look at winning percentages and all of that. So there we go. Next up, and since based on certain factors, we will probably scurry through the rest of this. Oh, by the way, I thought this was interesting. Michigan Man had brought up Occam's razor. I don't remember hearing that term, so let's learn something together. At least I'm going to learn this. The problem-solving principle that recommends searching for explanations constructed with the smallest possible set of elements. The principle of parsimony, or the law of parsimony, attributed to William of Ockham, 14th century English philosopher and theologian. Okay. All right, back to the maize and blue. We may have to do a part 2 on this baby. Counter Stallion scheme. The NCAA accuses Stallions of engaging in in-person scouting of 52 games over those 3 seasons. Really, the last season was only the first half. Many of them involving scheduled opponents of Michigan. Not all of them. In its response, the university contends that Stallions attended just one of those games and that only 8 more were attended by a then Michigan staff member. Oh, so I didn't know that we had games attended by other Michigan staff members. I thought these were just like clown fans or whoever wanted to make $100 kind of deal. Lower level managers that Stallions assigned to attend and presumably record sideline footage for his signal system, which leads me to a point that Nick had made about the outdated or clumsily phrased wording of the rule. And I think that's because this rule goes back to like 1993. So I don't know that they were foreseeing the technology that we have now. Other games were attended by Stallions' friends or family and do not violate NCAA bylaws, the school contends. Michigan also asserts that, quote, in many instances, the only evidence of the in-person scouting system is that Stallions purchased a game ticket. Again, circumstantial evidence. That's evidence, but it's not a smoking gun evidence. I purchased all these tickets, but nobody went to the games. You can't prove it. Michigan also argues that many of the in-person scouting allegations do not support the 6 elements of a completed indirect scouting violation, including lack of witness statements or eyewitness evidence that videos were taken from the stands at many of the games in which Stallions purchased tickets. However, in the NCAA's notice of allegations, the association did attach some videos and photos of people near the seats Stallions purchased recording the sideline. I thought we had seen that on social media. At least a few occurrences of that. Video from the stands. In one interesting bit, a handwritten note was found in Stallion's desk and was included as a reference to the plan for the Ohio State game in 2023 that states, among other things, quote, focusing on them all year, plus watching every TV copy Skycam. Okay, that doesn't do anything. That's in Michigan's focusing on Ohio State. Got it. Yeah, that's there's nothing there. The university contends that this supports that much of Stallion's sign stealing system came through legal avenues. Okay, not in person. An enormous amount of signal decoding was therefore permissibly done with TV and other publicity publicly. Whoa, let me start that sentence over. An enormous amount of signal decoding was therefore permissibly done with TV and other publicly available footage. Okay. All right. Oh, we'll get into Harbaugh. Yeah. Let's save this for another round. We'll pick this up tomorrow. And this is obviously not the only. It's probably close to it. The only information out there at this point. Everybody's writing off the same information, I would think. And as Cheryl is letting us know, no personal attacks, please. Make fun of people's football teams. Absolutely. But nothing else. All right. So we'll get more into Connor Stalions part of that. So we're going to finish out that section. Then we'll get in the Jim Harbaugh portion of this. Again, only Almighty God knows how this cheating affected games. 0, 100, I can guarantee it's somewhere in between. If the good Lord, if he cared to do so, of course he could do it, but he's not going to because he has better things to do. Snaps his fingers and it suddenly becomes a world in which there would have been no cheating. I wouldn't be surprised if the score of all these games was exactly the same. I also wouldn't be surprised if something was tweaked here or there. Maybe a loss to Ohio State. No. Wouldn't be surprised. But obviously, this was a really good football team that went out and executed and won championships. All right. Yeah, it's something else. So the couple things I can't get around. I can't get around the video and the pictures of Connor Stalions standing next to defensive coordinators while the plays are going on. Would a person of Connor Stalions' level on the coaching staff be normally standing next to the defensive coordinator during the game? I don't know. I've watched a lot of football, been involved in a lot of football, and in addition to watching a lot of football, covering a lot of football, in a sense now, but more closely for 7 years in the SEC. And I can't make a claim on that. I'm just wondering. And then again, Connor Stallions is bringing this intel. And you know, I will say that one thing that comes to light here is the combination of the two sources of intel, meaning legal, above board, and illegal, against the rules. And it kind of mixing together. And therefore, if he's presenting this to the Michigan coaching staff, the defensive coordinator in particular, and it's aided by the illegal, against the rules, espionage, but it's mixed in with the legitimate scouting, then you know what? I will give Michigan a pass on that. Institutional control can't be denied. And because before I really thought of it that way, I got to say that I was in the camp of football coaches are paranoid. They want to account for every second of work that they and their staffs put toward the game plans and the preparation of the team. And if some guy's off running some kind of crazy scheme, whether they initiated that or not, or just heard of it and it worked, they liked it, they liked the intel, it obviously was effective, or else they would have shut it down. Jim Harbaugh would have said after 3 weeks, this isn't doing us any good, or the defensive coordinator, whether that was Minter or McDonald. I think McDonald was first. McDonald would have said, Mike McDonald, okay, this is not doing us any good. Get back to legitimate scouting, and this is not helping us. But it continued for 2.5 years. But again, I'm stating that now, having read this information, I can see the mixture of the two scouting methods coming together. Interesting. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Again, we'll post a banner which basically says that in 2 Mondays, the 17th of February, we're getting together for the big Ohio State-Michigan debate. So check it out. It'll be a whole lot of fun. My next show is Florida State Live at 6 Eastern on the Florida State channel. I would expect all of you to head on over to the Florida State channel and support what we do there. We've got Miami at 7. And we will get together most likely on Thursday, and we will dig back into this article and finish it off, and maybe more by then. Appreciate your contributions here at the Voice of College Football. And we're going to be doing a big State of the Voice of College Football show here in the next couple weeks. See you at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Florida State channel.